Trauma. A word that carries a weight, a heaviness that can sometimes feel unbearable. It's not just a single event. It's a collection of experiences that can shape our lives in profound ways. You might think of trauma as something that only happens to other people, but the truth is, it's a universal experience. We all have our stories, our moments that have left us shaken, changed, and often searching for answers. So let's dive deep into this complex psychological phenomenon, breaking it down in a way that's relatable, engaging, and informative. First, let's talk about what trauma really is. At its core, trauma is an overwhelming emotional response to a distressing event. Think about it. When something shocking happens, like a car accident, an assault, or even the loss of a loved one, our minds and bodies react instinctively. We might feel fear, confusion, or even numbness. This is our brain's way of trying to cope with something that feels too big to handle. Sigmund Freud called it a psychic wound, and while that might sound a bit old-fashioned, the essence remains true. Trauma leaves scars, not just on our psyche, but also on our bodies. There are different types of trauma. Acute trauma comes from a single, shocking incident. Chronic trauma, on the other hand, is like a relentless storm, stemming from ongoing situations. Think of living in an abusive household or being in a war zone. Then there's complex trauma, which often involves multiple traumatic events, usually of an interpersonal nature, like prolonged childhood abuse. And let's not forget secondary trauma, which can affect caregivers or therapists who are exposed to someone else's pain. It's a ripple effect, where one person's trauma can touch the lives of many. Now, let's get a bit scientific, but I promise to keep it digestible. Trauma doesn't just affect our emotions, it rewires our brains. The amygdala, that little almond-shaped part of our brain responsible for processing fear, goes into overdrive. It's like your body is on constant alert, always ready to fight or flee. This hypervigilance can become exhausting. Over time, this stress response can lead to something called HPA axis dysregulation. It's a fancy term, but what it means is that your body gets stuck in a state of chronic stress, even when there's no real danger around. And here's where it gets even trickier. Trauma can shrink the hippocampus, the part of the brain that helps with memory. Imagine trying to recall a happy moment, but your brain feels foggy, like trying to remember a dream you had last night. This can lead to flashbacks, where you feel like you're reliving the trauma all over again, or dissociation, where you disconnect from your feelings entirely. It's a chaotic dance between memory and emotion, and it can leave you feeling lost. The psychological ramifications of trauma are vast. Post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, is perhaps the most recognized. It's more than just having nightmares or feeling anxious. It's a constellation of symptoms that can disrupt your daily life. You might find yourself avoiding places or people that remind you of the trauma, or you might feel emotionally numb, like you're watching your life unfold from a distance. Then there's complex PTSD, which adds another layer of difficulty: persistent feelings of guilt, chronic emptiness, and struggles with relationships. It's like carrying a heavy backpack filled with stones, each representing a painful experience. Dissociative disorders can also arise from trauma, where individuals disconnect from their thoughts or memories as a way to cope. For some, this can lead to dissociative identity disorder, a condition often linked to severe childhood trauma. It's a complex and often misunderstood experience, but it's a testament to the mind's ability to protect itself, even if it means fragmenting. And let's not overlook the emotional toll. Anxiety and depression often walk hand in hand with trauma. You might find yourself feeling a persistent sense of dread, or you might feel hopeless, like a shadow has taken residence in your heart. Some individuals seek relief in substances, using drugs or alcohol as a way to numb the pain. It's a temporary escape, but it often leads to a deeper entrapment in emotional distress. So, how do we begin to heal from this? Recovery from trauma is not a one-size-fits-all process. It's deeply personal, often winding and nonlinear. One of the first steps is establishing safety, both physically and emotionally. It's about creating a space where you feel secure enough to start unpacking those heavy bags you've been carrying. Therapy can be a powerful tool in this journey. Cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, is one of the most widely used approaches. It helps individuals reframe distorted thoughts related to their trauma. You learn to challenge those negative beliefs and replace them with more balanced perspectives. Eye movement. Desensitization and reprocessing, or EMDR, is another effective method. It's fascinating how it uses guided eye movements to help reprocess traumatic memories, easing their emotional intensity. Somatic experiencing is a unique approach that focuses on the body. It emphasizes the importance of releasing the physical tension that trauma can trap within us. You might find yourself engaging in movement or breathwork, reconnecting with your body in a way that feels safe and nurturing. For children and adolescents, trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy integrates trauma-sensitive interventions with cognitive behavioral techniques. It's about educating not just the young ones, but also their caregivers, building a support system that promotes healing. Group therapy can be incredibly validating. Sharing your story with others who have walked similar paths can foster a sense of belonging and connection. It's a reminder that you're not alone in this struggle, and it can be a source of strength. Psychodynamic therapy digs deeper, exploring how past experiences shape our current behaviors and emotions. It's about gaining insight into how trauma affects your life and relationships, helping you to understand and integrate those experiences. Sometimes medication can play a role in recovery. Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or SSRIs, are often prescribed to help manage anxiety or depression stemming from trauma. While medication can help regulate mood, it's most effective when combined with therapeutic interventions. The path to healing is filled with ups and downs, but it's essential to remember that recovery is possible. It involves processing the trauma, reconnection with others, and ultimately, empowerment. You're not defined by your trauma. You can reclaim your narrative and find new meaning in life. So, if you're on this journey or know someone who is, know that healing is a gradual process. It takes time, patience, and often a lot of courage. Each step forward, no matter how small, is a victory. And while the scars of trauma may remain, they can become a testament to your resilience, a reminder of your strength. Thank you for joining me in this exploration of trauma and its effects. If you found this information helpful, consider sharing it. Let's continue the conversation about mental health and healing, breaking down the stigma surrounding trauma. Together, we can create a community of support and understanding. Remember, you're not alone, and there is hope for recovery.